Right now on Tech Radio, are you under the influence?
Hi, I'm Artemis. I am a computer-generated AI voice, and you're listening to Tech Radio.
Hi there, and welcome to episode 1102 of Tech Radio. This week, looking back on the top stories of the week, including the latest moon landing, tech bros taking over the world, and we'll be going behind the scenes of how to be a social media influencer with one of Ireland's top influencers, Chelsea Tyler McGrain.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
I'm Dusty Rhodes. Joining me as always, our editor-in-chief, Niall Kitson. And Niall, did you miss me? I wasn't here for all of January. Did you cry yourself to sleep?
I know. Well, look, I mean, Jason stood in and he was very good. And then there was one week where I was just too distraught and couldn't have anyone else. So it's kind of a, what went on in your absence? Did anything happen? And only a complete realignment of the global geopolitical order as it's revealed that even the worst conspiracy theories out there, it looks like there's something to them.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a year. I was thinking about it because the one phrase I've heard over the last couple of weeks has been New World Order. And that's a phrase that was first coined, wait till you hear this, right? First coined by Winston Churchill. Because after World War II, there was huge change, very similar to what we're going through now. You will remember one of the things that stuck in my head that I don't remember from my history classes in school, because we concentrated on World War II and it's kind of like 1945, it was finished, and then we moved on to the 50s. But what happened between 1945 and 1950 was Britain was no longer, it was broke essentially after the war, was no longer able to maintain all of its empire. And of course, a lot of countries were wanting to be away from the UK influence. So India got there.
Us included.
Yeah, us included. Israel was one of those areas. India was another one of those areas. And kind of when you think it, that's when America really became dominant. And that's really the last time the world order has changed. And it's been like that for the last, 80 or 100 years, or 80 years since it's been. And we're seeing a huge, big change again. Now, we don't want to talk about politics, because that's a whole other thing. But we're changing as a society, and technology is just changing it like mad. And I think one of the things that is really changing life at the moment is, we've been through the internet revolution, if you want to call it that, all right? So late 90s, whatever, early 90s, when the internet was becoming popular. That changed everything. But the problem was that it generated masses and masses of data. You could analyze everything. I mean, do you remember the good old days when you just have a URL be like website.com/name of page? Now you've got a question mark and a UTM and all kinds of codes and and it goes on for forever and ever, But the problem with the internet is that with all of that data, how do you analyze it? Ta-da! We've got AI now to analyze it.
Well, we got something.
But AI...
I'm not sure how.
I think that the internet and all of that data combined with AI is a huge change in society. You were going to say?
Well, there's been plenty of changes in society. I mean, I remember the last time... See, it's very interesting you picked up Winston Churchill talking about New World Order, because for me, as a younger chap growing up, it was George H.W. Bush introduced me to that term, which talked about sort of the decline of communism and the movement of sort of the global hotspots towards Israel, where it is to this day. But we are seeing another New World Order, a new realignment where America has ceded the moral high ground in favor of individual enrichment by one person whose name shall not be mentioned on this podcast, and we seem to be moving into a multipolar world where America isn't the policeman anymore. America isn't the shining city on a hill, and we're on our own. We gotta look after ourselves, and I think it's a fascinating and an interesting time to be in, and a bit scary as well. I mean, we have to accept that, the companies that we would regard as linchpins of our civilization, sort of the big tech companies, they most certainly do not have our best interests at heart. And they have aligned themselves politically with an administration in the States that's hostile to the interests of Europe and pretty much everyone else, but certainly hostile to our own interests. And we have somebody like Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, came out and gave an absolutely amazing speech to the World Economic Forum, and well worth watching it. 15 minutes of your life well spent, where he talked about sort of the middle powers, where he talked about, Canada and the EU together, and, how we can reach out and create our own prosperity and security without America as a linchpin, without China as an overbearing force, So, I think I also like to think of what they call the Golden Arches theory of world peace. I don't know if you've come across this before, but it was basically by making sure everyone's economies are so interconnected, it forces us to be at peace, effectively, right? I mean, it's not a case where America can launch a missile tomorrow. The effects, the explosion might take place in, location X, but its effect will be felt in Ohio, for example, because you might have bombed somewhere that is a huge importer of goods from Ohio. Not sure there are that many, but that's basically the theory. You cannot bomb somewhere and expect your own economy not to suffer.
But you're being very old school now there, Niall, with your bombing places, because I think if there is that kind of conflict, I think we're seeing it at the moment, and it's not necessarily Ukraine. I know we've seen a lot of physical war going on there, but I think that the next big war, if you want to put it that way, is going to be a technological war.
Yeah, it's something we talked about last week with Jason as well. That we seem to be in a state of permanent war, but it's just because it's on the web. It's there seems to be an awful lot of plausible deniability, and actors that claim to be commercial that may not be. So there's the wonder of the anonymity of the internet. But anyway,
but it will have an effect on everybody's life. So you're talking about it will have an effect on Ohio. Was the example? Okay, so yes, somebody could do something online or technologically or whatever, but it will affect people in Ohio. So, for example, they could knock out power. Okay. And that's it, gone. It was like one of the things the Russians did recently was they knocked out power in Ukraine, and there was 1 million people in minus 20 degrees temperatures with no heat. So that kind of stuff can be going on. But I was thinking about with the changing world and stuff like that that's going on, we're the ones who are changing to a certain extent as well. There was a report out from Bank of Ireland this week. Man, they are just nutheads, numbheads. I can't think of the right expression, but it's not good whatever way. Bank of Ireland have a report out this week to say that contactless payments are up. All right, which is, of course, is no surprise. Everybody's on Revolut or their phone or whatever app or credit card that they're using. You just tap, 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 tap. I don't see cash anymore. Do you see cash?
Very, very rarely. And I was in a doctor's office not too long ago, and I said, "Oh, do you take card?" Sort of half expecting to know, and they said, "Oh yeah, of course we have the machine here. That's fine." And increasingly, we're seeing pay by watch.
Yes. Yeah. I was talking to a lady in the chipper there a couple of months back anyway, and I was saying everybody's tapping now, and she goes, "Oh yeah, and they're doing the watches now as well." She says, and you want to see them, they go absolutely nuts if their watch doesn't work. And they can't pay for their chips. It's like, what kind of a world are we living in where people are going off their head at 11:30 at night because their watch won't connect with the chipper?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, you leave the house and maybe you've got a nominal amount of cash because it's a good thing to have in case you have a taxi driver that's being bowled or something like that. So you leave the house and instead of having cash, you've now got cash, at least one card. Yeah. A credit or a Visa debit, and now you've got a digital wallet in your phone. I mean,
True.
know,
And listen, the other thing where you should have cash is because it's another thing that we hear all the time. I've no power left on my phone. My phone's just died. If your phone dies, what? You've no card and you've no cash with you? You're up the Swanee, my friend. Do you know what Bank of Ireland are doing? I think this is, I can understand the safety aspect, but I think it's bananas. Okay. Now, I'm not a Bank of Ireland customer, but a friend of mine is, and this is what they were telling me the other night, is that they are now forcing you to have a 6-digit code for every device that accesses Bank of Ireland. Not the same code, a different code. So you need one code for your phone, one code for your tablet, one code for your laptop. It's like, if you have to remember that many codes, what are you going to do with them? You're going to...
Well, I updated my Bank of Ireland app, and instead of remembering a number, I just went straight to biometrics. So my pass number
there you go, right?
Finger.
You're putting my tin hat on for me, all right? So now they've got your fingerprints. It's kind of like, I don't know. Another way the world is changing is, and I'm surprised you haven't mentioned it yet, we're 10 minutes in and you haven't mentioned the price of Bitcoin collapsing this week, because you love that. Every time it collapses, you go, wah.
Served you right, as I always say. And eventually it's going to be untrue. But for the moment, the only people using Bitcoin are speculators and criminals.
There you go. All right. However, besides from crypto, the stock market itself has changed considerably thanks to apps and bank apps and stuff like that, because what's happening now with the stock market is that people are investing directly. There was a point made to me, like, 30 years ago, I have to call my stockbroker. People didn't have stockbrokers. Do you know what I mean? Unless you were kind of like loaded or something like that. I met a girl when I was away in January, and she was saying, oh yeah, well, I bought a little bit of Microsoft, or I can't remember what it was, and such, and I've got shares and such. And I go, oh, do you invest? And she goes, I just do it on the app. Do you know what I mean? Wow. And she took out her phone and she says, yeah, well, if I've got an extra 20 quid or whatever, I'll put it in, And like kind of over the last year, I've managed to save, and that saving has increased way more than the bank would ever pay me in interest. So that's a huge change from many, many years ago. Even like 2008, which was kind of the last or one of the big stock market crashes, or the dot-com bubble, which was back in whenever, 1999, 2000, something like that. So it's completely changed. When you've got millions of people investing directly into stocks and change, I just think it's a change. Anyway. Changing world. Other story, and kind of along the same lines, is social media.
Okay, an actual story. What have you got for
story
me?
was just everybody's jumping on the Australian bandwagon now of banning social media for under 16-year-olds. France have said that they're going to do it. Spain said they're going to do it. UK have been saying for a couple of weeks they're going to do it. Denmark are doing it as well. It just seems to be kind of taking the world by storm. Initially, I was not in favour of it, but I was listening to Jason on the podcast last week or the week before, and he said he's very much in favour of it. And in some ways, I think, yes, it's a good idea. And the idea that I had in my head was that when you're a parent and you're looking after this small human being, you want to protect them. And keeping kids off social media is something you need to protect them, because social media is real life. Do you know what I mean? It's full of bullies, liars, as well as friends and good communication. Don't get me wrong. But there's a lot of bad stuff on social media, and there's a lot of good stuff on social media as well. So keeping them off it, I think, until they're over 16, maybe it's a good thing. Not. But here's the worrying thing. The big story this week, Niall, on the tech side of things, is that the French government are going to go one step further, because as we all know, there's always a workaround, and lots of kids are getting VPNs and they're just accessing social media that way. But now France are kind of saying, well, actually, we're going to target VPN use now as well, so that you can only access the internet via an official means, and you can't disguise what your real location is using VPN.
Oh, okay. So just to add a little bit more sort of salt in there, Greece are also jumping in Over here, we seem to be very reticent because nice economy you guys have here. Shame something happened to it. So I think this is pretty good. I mean, the fact that it's spread out from Australia, which seems to have been broadly welcomed, and I think the recognition has been that, yeah, we know this stuff is bad for us. So it's probably a good thing that we don't have as much use for it before. Of course, there are some very enterprising young people that have found a way around it. And one of the funnier things in reading, there was a BBC report on, how's it going? And a few kids said, yeah, well, look, we found a way to bypass it, but yeah, we're not really missing that much. It's all a matter of where your friends are. And some kids were like, yeah, my mental health is much better for it. I just feel more free in and of myself. And some parents have reported their kids getting moodier and a bit more, angry in general, to which I went, they've become teenagers.
That's what they do.
That's part of the gig. This is normal aging, trying to assert your personality at home against one's parents, because they're the only people you can push back against. Sorry, this is the way of humanity. If your kids are being a bit annoying, you can't put them down in front of a screen anymore.
And that's bad news for parents all over the world, I can assure you. Another sign where government is stepping into control, social media, is in Spain. They haven't mentioned VPN, but they have said that they're going to make it an offence for algorithmic manipulation and amplification of illegal content. And that the CEOs
I like that.
will be held personally responsible and will be brought to justice.
Okay, sounds fine in theory.
Yeah, in theory.
And this is what they're into in France as well. It's not just a recognition of getting people online. It's finding what people are finding when they go on. And I think that's a big part of the solution. Here's the thing, though. I mean, who's going to arrest Elon Musk?
Who can arrest Elon Musk? Yeah, exactly.
And you can't exactly rock up to where he is in Austin? Anyway, I think it's Austin. Can't exactly rock up to
okay, that's very interesting, because who can arrest any of those people? This is another interesting thing that's happening with what's going on in the world at the moment. Who can arrest people at that level? All right. So we've seen the Clintons who are kind of going, well, we're not going to testify to blah, blah, blah. And now all of a sudden they are. Bill Gates has been in the news. I mean, this Epstein thing is just going on and on and on and on. And the amount of people involved and the level of society that they're at is just mind blowing.
Yeah. And you discover that once you reach a certain level, it's just, consequences become irrelevant. I mean, there was an interview with Trump there a couple of weeks ago where he was asked, do you consider there are any guardrails on you? And he's like, no, just my own morality. That's it. Otherwise, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
He's not wrong. I mean, as we've discovered, I mean, the houses of Congress in the States are pretty supine. I mean, you've got a Republican controlled House and Senate that are pretty cool or with what he's doing, or petrified of him because of the way the US system works, where it's all about the donors calling the shots. Anyway, that's the rabbit hole. I'm in danger.
Yeah, exactly. Let's get back to tech. And finally, nothing gets more tech than a machine flying around the moon.
Oh, please. Yes. Let's talk about space.
I am just so excited about this whole Artemis project, which is the return to the moon, because it wasn't around for Neil Armstrong and all of that kind of stuff, and the whole moon project back in the late 60s, early 70s and stuff like that. This to me is really exciting. I don't know why, just really exciting. So anyway, Artemis is the project. It's been going on for a decade or so at the moment, but we're into the final phase, if you want to look at it that way. 3 trips planned. The first one they have done, which was Artemis 1, which was a rocket that went up and it did a fly past the moon, circumnavigated the moon and came back unmanned just to test everything out. Went very well. Load of problems arose, but they fixed everything. Now we're into the second phase, which will be a manned trip to circumnavigate the moon. And then the third one will be to actually land on the moon. So we're in stage 2 at the moment with the unmanned trip, with the manned trip around the moon. And they were doing what they call a wet test, which essentially is they've rolled the rocket out. It took like an entire weekend for it to travel like 4 miles or whatever. It must be like driving a skyscraper or something like that. Can you imagine going 1 mile an hour or whatever? However, the rocket is there and they did what's called a wet test. And essentially what they do is they just fill it up with all of the oxygen, the hydrogen and everything. And they count it right down to like T minus 10 seconds. And then they kind of go, okay, looks good to me. Let's do it for real next time. This time around, when they did the wet test, they stopped at a T minus 5 minutes because there was a liquid hydrogen leak that they were concerned about. Also, the crew module's pressurization was taking a little bit longer than expected. So they went, okay, let's scratch it for now. They are in the process of fixing those problems, which they think will not take long for them at all. And they're expecting to do another wet test before the end of the month. If that is successful, we're going to be looking at men, and I believe a woman, traveling around the moon sometime in March. Next month. March.
Wow.
Human beings flying around the moon. Amazing. And then in 2027, I think it is, the plan is that they are going to actually put people back on the moon again, which I can't say, I'm not going to say I can't wait for it, but man, am I looking forward to it. I'm absolutely staying up all night for that thing. Whatever time. All the news this week, actually speaking of space and speaking of Elon Musk, he's been talking about doing some very radical stuff with data centers.
He has had a mental week. I mean, we could have just done a full show on, things that are annoying Elon Musk this week. However, the big business story from his perspective is the acquisition of XAI by SpaceX. So basically we had X, which he paid $44 billion for, didn't bring in any money, was acquired by XAI. XAI clearly not bringing in enough money because it's just been acquired by SpaceX. Which means that Elon Musk effectively has two companies, SpaceX and Tesla. SpaceX is, seems very, very mission focused, which is fantastic. Tesla seems to be not as interested in electric cars as it was, so much as it's interested in robots, robo-taxis, and infrastructure. So I think we will see fewer Tesla models on the road in favor of these more blue sky things. Does that mean we will ultimately see Tesla folded into SpaceX and SpaceX will be the brand? I think it's not beyond comprehension that might happen. However, in his actual good news of the week related to SpaceX, the FCC chair Brendan Carr has said, who is the FCC is the Federal Communications Regulator in states, Trump appointee. Let's not go down to that rabbit hole again because I could. Who basically said, look, we've had an application from SpaceX to build data centers in space. We've accepted it. We're now opening it to comments from the public. But I mean, unless somebody comes out and says, I don't want this data center in my backyard, to which you go, what backyard? This thing is going to be orbital. It's going to be powered by the sun. And that's where your data center problem solved. To which I'm thinking, this is actually a fantastic idea. God knows the trouble that we have with planning permission and compute and storage issues on Earth with data centers. If we can get a sustainable solution in orbit, I'm happy clappy to go with that. Redundancy, of course, is an issue. And invaders from Mars is certainly an issue. You seem unconvinced, Dusty.
It's not that I'm unconvinced. It's out there, but it's absolutely possible because you're right. Being in outer space, Certainly it cures the heating problem because it's very cold out there. You've got solar power. You've got a perfect view of the sun all the time. So then that should be no problem at all. I was thinking about how about the connection between Earth and so on and so forth. That's fine. Do you know what I mean? Because Wi-Fi is just, getting better and better. You've now got Wi-Fi on planes. Do you know what I mean? Where you can actually access the internet and watch Netflix on planes. If you go on to, I think it's Emirates are the ones who do it. Yes, because I've done it. Emirates will show live TV on a plane and it's being streamed.
Oh, wow.
Do you know what I mean? So I was watching a football match on a flight one night. Oh, this is mad. I don't watch football. But it was just because I could, So I think, he's got something. Why not? They're putting data centers at the bottom of the ocean, and it seems to work. So no, good on him. Not a good week though for Mr. Musk in France, or Monsieur Musk.
As you like calling him. Yes.
It's just the X headquarters in Paris have been raided by prosecutors because they've been doing an investigation for a long time. They've been investigating the X algorithm. They're investigating Grok. They're investigating the Holocaust denials which have happened on X. And of course, this whole thing we've had recently with sexual deepfakes and stuff like that. So they're all over that. They've raided the offices looking for evidence. And I like this. They've summoned Mr. Musk for a voluntary interview.
Yeah, well,
exactly.
We had the same thing this week. The Arts Committee summoned big tech to talk about their safety features for their users. So TikTok showed, Meta Platforms showed, Google showed. Who else was there? There was somebody else there. Meta, Google, I'm missing someone. But basically, all the players showed except for X, who declined. And that is going to be the form of it.
Yeah, I think so.
Nobody from X is going to account for themselves because they believe themselves to be free speech absolutists. Although Elon Musk did post something, it's Thursday as we're recording this. He posted something this morning to the effect of, all the money in the world won't make you happy.
Yeah.
Sad emoji.
Yeah, but it'll buy you a boat big enough to sail up right beside happiness, won't it? Anyways, last story for this week, and this is just an interesting kind of a thing that I know. Notepad. It's not Notepad, but Notepad++.
Oh, I just use regular Notepad. What am I missing out on?
Notepad++ is the same thing, but it's more used by coders. So it will have kind of, HTML and I'm thinking of all the different. It's more a coding version of Notepad, if you like. All right. And it's very good. And it did multi-tabs for ages before Microsoft version of it did. However, lovely piece of software. It's available free on the internet. I highly recommend it. They said that they were subject to a hijack by what they are saying is a state-sponsored hacker from China. So whatever about that, listen, never mind about the politics and the who and the did. Here's the way that they did it is interesting, right? What they did was the updates to the program, and we're well used to that. You've got an app running on your computer or whatever. It says, there's a latest update available. Do you want to update? And you go, yeah, and it just updates itself and it's done. Somehow the hacker was able to get in on that update process, and for very certain specific individuals was able to redirect the update instead of to the official server to a malicious server, which had an executable file on it there with a virus contained therein. And I went, wow, that is high end. That's high. Getting people, because whatever about being on a website and downloading software or attachments to your email and stuff like that, but when you are doing an official update in the actual piece of software that you trust, and to know that that could be hacked, just be careful. Notepad now do say that it has been patched, it has been fixed, they've moved on to a new host and everything's okie dokie now. But, be warned.
Be warned. Wow. Okay.
There we go.
Duly noted.
Duly noted. Grand stuff. Listen, that's it for the news for this week. As always, Niall, thanks for keeping us up to date.
Delivering Irish tech news since 2006. This is Tech Radio.
Here's a quick statistic, may or may not come as a surprise to you. A survey in the US has found that 57% of Gen Z consider influencer to be their dream job. So what goes on into being an influencer and how to live a life as an influencer, and how do you find a way to stand out in a world of makeup tutorials and fitness advice and God knows what else? Chelsea Tyler McGrain is an influencer, a very successful one here in Ireland, and a digital strategist with Core Optimization. She had a chat with Niall Kitson during the week about working with influencers and her own journey as one herself.
Chelsea, the life of the influencer, as we've come to know, it's a weird kind of mix of brand ambassador, of salesperson, of social media personality, all of these things and kind of none at the same time. So how would you define what an influencer is?
So for me, it has definitely changed over the years. So influencer marketing was kind of at the forefront a couple of years ago. And then through the pandemic, things changed and it became more about content creation. But for me, like what influencer marketing is, it's when brands partner with creators who have already built trust and influence with a specific audience. So instead of a brand running traditional ads, they're using real people who have real opinions and real experiences to communicate a message in a way that feels really natural and relatable. So that's what I would deem influencer marketing to be. And I think there's so many benefits for brands to work with influencers. So like elements like trust and credibility. Audiences will really trust recommendations coming from people that they already follow. So a lot of the time it will feel more relatable than polished brand ads when someone they like and feel like they relate to talks about a product. So it'll carry a lot more weight. And then for brands, like you're also basically able to target really engaged audiences because creators will often speak to very niche and engaged communities, whether it's beauty, fitness, parenting, and brands can tap directly into the right people without broad or wasted spend. And another element is that it's authentic storytelling. So influencers show products in the context of their real life. So it feels very human, not corporate. And that's why, from my perspective, working in social advertising, the content tends to perform better than traditional ads. So I would see higher engagement rates and higher conversion rates when brands use influencer marketing than they would with traditional brand ads.
That's really interesting because in using an influencer, you do have the ability to lean on metrics perhaps better than if you were to use, say, a full advertising campaign or to invest money in expensive ad for television or something like that. And of course, authenticity, as you mentioned there, it is the primary currency. So how does one make that leap from sort of I'm doing how-to videos to working with specific brands in that area?
Yeah, so I think authenticity is the most important thing. That's what consumers will see through. So for me, like what I noticed was a couple of years ago, consumers were only really influenced by creators with really large followings. But then we saw that take a bit of a turn because the big creators were doing more and more ads and paid content. And then consumers felt like there was a bit of a mistrust there. So during the pandemic, what I really saw was that consumers wanted to engage with smaller creators who they felt more related to, and then kind of finding their own online community. So I think that that's really key for small creators. If you can find that niche and that community where people really feel engaged with you, that's what's going to grow your reach. That's what's going to grow your following. And then you can go on to work with brands. And I think from a brand perspective, you know, there's been a lot of work done in the last few years around advertising standards and transparency. And that's really played into the authenticity of influencer marketing. So in Ireland, the ASAI is a body that enforces the guidelines that creators have to disclose when they're being gifted something or doing an ad. So it's more clear than ever for consumers, and consumers really, really notice now. Whereas before, consumers would have been kind of mindlessly scrolling through feeds and mightn't have even realized that something was an ad. But it's harder and harder for brands and creators to do that now when there is so much guidelines around transparency. But for me, from a brand perspective, what would make me choose a creator from authenticity is that they're regularly posting about the industry. So for example, if I'm a skincare brand, I'm not going to work with a creator that doesn't talk about their skincare routine on a regular basis. And for me, a bigger benefit is if a creator is organically talking about your brand or using them. So again, with the skincare reference, I would, as a brand owner or an agency, keep an eye on that field and look at what creators are already using your brand without you having to reach out. I've heard influencer marketing agencies referring to it as flirting with the brand. So you're kind of trying to get their attention before they come to you. So that feels really authentic, obviously, because their audience has already seen them talk about you. And then I think another thing is that long-term partnerships feel more authentic. So what I would do if I was starting with the brand and it was their first influencer campaign, I'd do a bit of a test and learn approach, look at micro influencers to macro influencers, obviously based on your budget. And then I would look at which influencers perform, and whatever ones feel really aligned and drive measurable business results are the ones that I would agree a retainer with and work together on a long-term basis.
You've sort of thrown up an awful lot of issues there, especially when you're talking about sort of people that operate very much on that micro level. Do influencers actually either age out or become, too commercial, that they have to ascend to a level of, traditional celebrity or something like that? Is there an acceptable lifespan for one's career as an influencer?
Yeah, that is a big issue, to be honest. Like, I have seen myself, so I do content creation outside of my role in digital strategy. And for me, I had a lot of benefits to coming into the industry because I would have sourced influencers, briefed influencers, seeing their fees, basically seeing why brands would want to work with them again. So I had a lot of pros going into this. So for me, I only started creating content last year, so November 2024. And within 12 months, I grew my following on Instagram and TikTok to a combined of 52K. I've over 2 million views a month and I'm doing regular brand deals. And within that space of a year, I can definitely see sentiment starting to shift in my comments. And that is one thing that I love about social media is you get instant feedback from your audience, whether it's how many views your video gets or what they're saying in the comments, and good or bad, you should take it into consideration. So for me, at the start, I felt people were very much like, oh, you're just like me. You're a normal person. I want to watch your content. And if you share a link that you're getting an affiliate code for, let's say, I want to support you. And that can quickly shift when you grow and start to do more and more work with brands where it feels like, oh, hold on, maybe you've done a few too many brand posts, or I now feel that I can't relate to you as much. And for me as a creator, I am hyper conscious of that now. And it's something that I kind of had to learn the hard way. So it is a balance between like growing. If you want this to be a career, you need to keep growing your numbers. You need to keep working with brands, but you have to stay relevant to your audience. So when you feel the tide starts to turn, for me, a big tip is I will just focus on organic content. So for the next week, I'll put out as much organic content that I know my audience really enjoys. So when I do my next brand collaboration, they don't feel like they've lost that relatability to me or that everything they're being served is an ad. So I think there's a balance, and I think consumers are extremely aware of it, which they probably wouldn't have been 5-10 years ago.
I remember from my time in consumer publishing, we used to have a statistic that it was something like 60% of what was in your output had to be sort of original content, whereas you had the latitude to do maybe 40% commercial material. Is that something that holds true?
Definitely. And I think that can be really hard for creators. Like, I've actually seen big enough creators in Ireland that have made content talking about the fact that, like, listen, you guys love my content. I spend so much time doing organic content for you. But in order for me to keep doing this and for this to be my job, I need you to engage with my ads. So I think it's actually becoming transparent that creators feel they can have that conversation, because ultimately, in order to be a full-time content creator, you need to earn an income. And the only way that you can stay relevant is by the organic content. So there definitely is a huge balance. And I think that might be a bit of a mistake that some creators make. I feel like me coming to this with a background in digital marketing, I'm more aware of those things, where I see creators a lot of the time, especially starting off in the beginning, when you get opportunities, you want to take every opportunity possible. So there is definitely a huge balance there.
So your own particular niche as an influencer is looking at Chinese restaurants. So what made you choose food and then Chinese restaurants within it?
So it was completely by accident, because I did a test and learn approach to influencer marketing, where in the beginning I thought about 5 or 6 different areas I could create content on, and I posted about everything and then saw what worked. So for me, if you had have asked me at the beginning what I would have liked to focus on, it probably would have been more like beauty and skincare. But I saw a huge reaction from food content. And one day I made a random video, literally in my pajamas, in my kitchen, saying like, I think this is the best Chinese food. And that video, this is very early on in my content journey, had like 80,000 views, so many comments of people arguing where the best Chinese food was. So for me, I was like, hold on, there's something magic here. So I said to my husband, we are going on a tour of Dublin and we're reviewing Chinese food, because I can see how passionate people are. So I do one of those videos a week, and they are guaranteed on a weekly basis to be my highest viewed videos, my most engaged videos, anywhere between like 50 to 100k views on a weekly basis for me eating Chinese in my car. So bizarre. It was never my intention for my career, but from that, people got to know me on a personal level and got to know my personality, got to see my relationship with my husband, and we started doing more lifestyle content. And that was really where other opportunities came up. So showing renovations in our home, and then all of a sudden being offered opportunities to work with interior brands, or me doing the likes of my skincare routine or makeup routine, and then getting opportunities with makeup brands and skincare brands. So as much as I know my audience loves food, and that's kind of my area and my opportunity to grow in, I have been very fortunate that people have gotten used to us and our personality, that they want aspects of our lives in other areas. And that's where other opportunities lie for me.
So is it something that you would be concerned about, that people initially come to you looking for sort of the food content, but to see you've branched out into other areas? Is it a concern that I might end up losing viewers because they're not terribly interested in this other stuff? It was kind of the Chinese in my car that people initially wanted. How do you keep that balance up?
Yeah, it was something in the beginning I was very conscious of, and kind of thought, right, I can only do food. That's all people want to see. But I do think that people kind of fall in love with creators based on their personality. And what I started to see in the comments of food videos, where people were commenting back like jokes between me and my partner, or like aspects of our personality or other things that we were talking about. So I did know that there was an interest in us in terms of personalities rather than just the food content. So I knew there was a bit of scope there to flesh it out. But what I did in the beginning was, if I was doing a daily vlog, you were seeing what we were having for breakfast, lunch and dinner. So food was always a part of it. Now, for me, I know that my beauty content won't get as many views. But at the same time, I work with beauty brands that I would have affiliate codes with, and I can see that I'm driving sales. So although I'm not getting the same amount of views on beauty content as I'm getting on the food content, it is an area that I know I can drive conversion. So for me, I actually feel quite lucky that metrics might look slightly different in terms of the different type of content that I do, but there's an element of engagement with it all. So it's just me being clever to make sure that every week you're going to get a Chinese video from me. And if you're watching a vlog, you know you're going to see what I'm having for dinner with a glass of wine.
So let's look at metrics, because, you know, being able to quantify things is one of the great sort of boons of internet marketing. Of course, there are various problems that come along with it as well. Personally, my personal bugbear is, okay, you've got all this traffic, but how much of it is actually commercially relevant to the brand you're working with? How do you present yourself then as an influencer to a brand? You know, do you go, look, this is exactly what my page views are per week, but hey, this is, you know, if you were to segment it, this is what my makeup content brings in, this is what my lifestyle stuff brings in, or do you just take a holistic approach to it?
Yeah, so your audience insights and your performance insights are really key as a content creator. So for me, if I was to approach a brand, having data like doing content for a year, I've grown my following by X amount. This is the amount of monthly views that I get. It would be more top level of your overall account. So they would be the kind of insights that I would give to a brand as a creator. But I think for me, having the dual side of it, I also see from a client perspective what I'm looking for when I'm sourcing the right creators for my brands. So for us in core optimization, we take a bit of a performance marketing approach to influencers, which I think is slightly different. And I think that mindset's really helped me in my content creation journey. So for us, we obviously want to work with credible creators who have genuine engagement and drive measurable business outcomes. But with that, we don't concern ourselves too much with vanity metrics. So a lot of the time, the first thing someone will look at is number of followers. And a lot of the time, if I approach an influencer agency to look for costs, I'm given a fee based on number of followers. But for me, there's always an extra layer. What percentage of that audience are they reaching? And a lot of the times, the bigger they are, the smaller the percentage of reach. So that's a big thing to consider. And like, what's key for me is what's their engagement rate like? What's their view through rate like? Because people are scrolling constantly. If you don't stop the scroll in the first 3 seconds, it doesn't matter how good that content is, people won't receive the message. So view through rate's really important for me. Clicks and conversions are also important for me. And then if I'm working with an e-com client, I would always recommend that they give influencers a unique discount code or a UTM tracking link. So that way we can accurately track who's driving sales. And then within core optimization, we have a data measurement team. So that's another layer on top of it where I would be able to work with the guys to see this influencer posted about this product on this date and time. Can you help me measure spikes in traffic or purchases at that time? So we can actually really see their audience's purchase intent. And those metrics for me is what's going to determine whether or not I would recommend that our clients work with the creator again. And that gives me an extra lens for myself. So I know I need to have a strong hook in the first 3 seconds to stop that scroll because I want brands to see that someone's going to watch my video for a long time. I know that I need a strong call to action at the end because again, I want to show brands that people will click the link and go to their site. So I think all of those metrics are really, really important. And ultimately, the performance of your content is what's going to determine whether a brand works with you again. So I feel quite lucky that I have the background that I have, seeing it from both sides.
So let's talk about some of those audience metrics. I mean, when you're looking at things that are, you know, you want that quick hook, that sort of implies sort of a younger dopamine addicted mindset. Do you tend to find that influencers attract a younger audience, seeing as it's a newer kind of position in the social media sphere? Or does age really matter, that people are attracted to the content first?
I personally don't think age matters. I think if you are someone who spends a lot of time online and scrolling, no matter what age you are, your attention span has been affected by it. And for me, like, I work with a variety of brands who would have very different audience segments. And I can see across the board, whether you're in the age bracket of 25 to 35 or 55 to 65, you're going to fall off after 3 seconds. So I actually think age is irrelevant. If you're someone who's myself chronically online or online a lot, you're going to have the same behaviors. And unfortunately, our attention span is affected. So for me, like, there's such a key formula when it comes to content to grab someone in, make them listen and make them perform an action.
So personally, I'm used to sort of watching kind of longer channels on YouTube channels that specialize in content, maybe 20, 30 minutes or something like that. And they would adhere to something that looks like a traditional TV format with nice opening credits and, acknowledgements at the end. Thank you to our patrons and all that kind of thing. When it comes to production values, how do influencers handle things, especially if you've got such a small attention window? Are they interested in things like on-screen branding, or is, your face your brand?
Yeah, so I think you have to be very subtle with branding. So as much as I would say, like, consumers really are aware now of the fact that influencers are promoting products or doing ads. But even in briefs I get from brands all the time, basically what they say is, oh, just weave us in authentically. Don't make it look like an ad. So I have to be transparent to have a paid promotion label on it. I have to use #ad, but the brand wants me to make it feel like it is an organic part of my day. So to be honest, from an influencer perspective, it's how you can weave a brand in without it feeling forced. So having the likes of like a big brand logo doesn't really work when it comes to the likes of TikTok or Instagram Reels. It needs to feel authentic. So I would say it's a totally different formula. And from a paid advertising perspective, a lot of the times brands would struggle with the volume of content that's needed for social. So I would be given an above the line or a TV style ad that's been cut down and told, like, this is what we've got, run this on social media. And I can see that it never performs. You need to develop social first content. And there is a very specific formula to that. And as I said, it's the likes of having that hook in the first 3 seconds. It's the likes of things like social SEO. I think that's really underused. People talk about website SEO all the time, but social media channels are built like search engines. So when you're making content, you need to make sure that you're using keywords. So if it is about, makeup, what are people searching when it comes to makeup routines? Is it like natural makeup, 5-minute makeup? If that's what's the most searched on TikTok, then you need to make sure that through your video, you're saying things like 5-minute natural. You also need to make sure those keywords are in the text on screen, and you need to make sure those keywords are in your copy and your hashtags. And that's really what's going to boost your discoverability. So I think it's a totally different approach when it comes to the likes of making like TV or YouTube content. Social media is all about grabbing attention, and it is a search engine at the end of the day now. Like when I go on holiday, I'm not on Google to find what restaurants I should eat at in New York. I'm on TikTok, and my whole itinerary is based on someone's itinerary on TikTok or the places to eat. So I think especially the younger generation, they're using TikTok as Google. And we need to make sure that our content is optimized for SEO so that it's going to be picked up in the For You page.
So influencers, they're pretty much avatars for their audiences then. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I think it's a balance. So I think that ultimately you need to be true to yourself. If you're trying to put on a persona to appeal to an audience that only lasts so long, consumers are very savvy. They can see through that. So I think you do need to be yourself and find your community of people who enjoy your personality or feel like they're like you. But at the same time, if you want to be successful, you need to understand metrics. You need to understand which videos perform, how you're going to be picked up on For You pages, how you're going to appear in searches. So it is a balance between being a brand, driving yourself as a brand, but also being really authentic and relatable to your audience.
One last point, just to have a look at seeing
you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube
Are
for
we
Tech
going
Radio
to see AI
Ireland.
influencers, or is
Tech
this just
Radio
too
is produced by
contrary to
deskpod.io
what
for
an influencer does in the first
techcentral.ie.
place?
I think it can't be avoided. AI is going to be a big trend in influencer marketing, as it's been a big trend in every other aspect of life. So if you look at markets like China, there are already AI influencers with millions of followers working with huge brands. So it is something in cultures like that that has really taken off. But I think there's pros and cons like there is to everything. So with AI, it can help you make content at scale. And for brands that might have tight budgets and not be able to afford the volume of content that's needed for social media, that's a real pro. But yeah, the biggest con is authenticity. So people want to relate to real people and hear real voices. So I think at the minute, AI might be a bit of a novelty in the likes of social media, and it's kind of funny to watch an AI influencer and see how they interact with brands, and, you know, you share it to your friends and say, God, can you believe this isn't a real person? But I think it's a novelty, and long term, people aren't going to purchase products based on an AI influencer because they know it's something that was probably designed and created by a brand. So it's just a different form of brand communication. So I think it's fun, it's exciting, it's definitely one to watch in the space, but I think authenticity will definitely prevail.
And that was Chelsea Tyler McGrain chatting with Niall Kitson. If you want to find her online, her handle is at Chelsea Tyler McGrain on Instagram and TikTok, and we'll stick that into the show notes of this podcast for you as well.
This is Tech Radio with Dusty Rhodes and Niall Kitson.
That's it for this week. Don't forget, you can check out some more stories online this week, including...
Yeah, we have a record year for cyber attacks, and it's all thanks to AI. We also have good times for Palantir. And of course, Spain considers its social media ban for under 16s.
All of those stories are more online for you right now at techcentral.ie. We're back again next Friday with a brand new show. In the meantime, please do remember to share our podcast with a friend. If they're into tech and gadgets, just tell them to look up Tech Radio Ireland on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. Until next time, from myself, Dusty Rhodes, and from Niall Kitson, thanks for listening. Take care.
Remember, you can get the latest Irish tech news with hourly updates, daily newsletters, and more at our website, techcentral.ie. Share the knowledge and invite a friend to listen. Search Apple, Spotify, or YouTube for Tech Radio Ireland. Tech Radio is produced by dustpod.io for techcentral.ie. From me, Artemis, live long and prosper.